Hello.
Good morning.
Good morning. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Your Word is Your Wand. And I am Carrie Mushaw, your anxiety expert, and this is my business partner,
Andrea Alexander, your anxiety expert.
Awesome. And today we have a special guest. We have Maria Rodriquez, who is a coach who is here with us. Welcome, dear. And the design of Your Word is Your Wand. This podcast was created to bring awareness to the power of our words and how we can create change in a holy instant simply by changing our language. And so, as we're coming in, one of the things Andrea and I do at the beginning of all of our podcasts is we enjoy coming in and creating a sacred container. This is a container where we can share, we can talk, and we can be who we were meant to be. And in that, creating that, we enjoy beginning with your breath because our breath is such a powerful tool that already exists inside of us that we can use. And that's what we're remembering is we have everything we require right here in us. So as we come in this morning and we create this sacred container, I'm going to ask anybody who's listening to replay, who joins us, to go ahead and participate as well in breathing because it's such a powerful thing. So together, let's all take a nice big inhale. Inhale really big. And exhale through your mouth, long and slow.
Oh, that felt good.
And on our next breath, we're going to remember that our inhalation is the moment that we open the door to receiving. So when you take your next inhalation, really light up your nostrils for your inhalation, for your receiving. So here we go. Inhale big, allowing yourself to fully receive. Ooh, allow your chest to expand. And then exhale through your mouth, long and slow, letting go.
Perfect.
Yes, we're remembering that we can let go simply by exhaling. One more time. Get a big one. Here we go. Inhale big. All that receiving. And exhale. Yes, allowing it to land inside and allow our breath to come in really brings us right into returning to our bodies and being in the moment. And the next thing that we do is we love to do decrees. And decrees are magic. And it's where our words create our new pathways and when we can embrace something completely new and different. And Andrea is masterful at decrees. So, Andrea, will you go ahead and lead us in some decrees this morning?
I'm getting my pen and paper, okay?
It's recorded too. You can always return and listen.
Yes.
And so as we walk into this massive time of intimacy with all of our families and our love and being together, I'm aware that we may have a lot of expectations of how things are supposed to go and what we choose to have and do and be. And it is often very different. And so my first decree this morning is I give myself permission to love the family I have.
I give myself permission to love the family that I have.
I give myself permission to enjoy the family I have.
I give myself permission to enjoy the family I have.
That I have.
I let my love in.
I let my love in.
me love me.
Me love me. Whew.
You allow yourself to do this. Like, it's okay to not have to work during the holidays.
Yes, and
There's
what I hadn't aware of this morning. Carrie and I we've heard and said that expectations diminish joy. And when we have expectations of how people and things are supposed to go and it doesn't, we're disappointed. And so when we give ourselves permission in a decree, and the word permission translates in per my mission, which is per my mission in life, we're giving ourselves permission to love people exactly where they are, which gives us permission to love ourselves exactly where we are. And expectation, what we've been playing is my awareness this morning was, who told me, or where did I learn that my dad is supposed to act and behave a certain way? He's supposed to be this man on a white horse that saves me from everything. That was my expectation of my father. I didn't have a discussion with that. There was no agreement between he and I that that's the way that he was going to behave. And so we find that we are disappointed and judge the love of our parents, our families, our friends, because we're expecting them to behave in a certain way. And so when we give ourselves permission to love exactly where we are, we can flail, we can throw temper tantrums, we can show up a little late, and it's all okay. Because what we're really doing is loving exactly where we are, accepting and letting go of expectations. We're giving ourselves permission to have love, to have joy in our moment of now.
I receive it.
It's and the other thing that I just, when we're just talking about our families, is I believe that we signed up for the experience. We signed up for this family. We picked them. Like, I believe divinely we picked our families. And so if we're going to have if we're going to set expectations that we know they're not going to meet, because that's what's happening. There's part of you that's like, they're not going to do this. This is kind of what I wish they would do. I wish they would. I hear people say that all the time. I wish they would. I wish they would. I'm hoping this year there'll be this, or they'll do this, and we're the ones that signed up for the experience of the family that resides in front of us. And the moment that we love what we have chosen, in that moment, it will feel completely different and may even look different. But it's just for us to step in and give it to ourselves.
There's always chaos is an example of choice, and choice equals change. And so everything is constantly moving. And when we will love where we are and let go, we can be present with the people that are around us. And it's up to us to make whatever's going on okay. All of that noise is taking us out of massive intimacy. We've had this fear that if we show up fully, people are going to judge us. And so courageous intimacy is loving everything for what it is, which is someone's choice, and we can all be okay with it.
And I'm going to tell you, I can already hear that the way to do this is that when you're entering the room at Christmas, to just go, as someone's talking, and you may have found yourself frustrated, or you see something that you didn't like in the past, that you just look at that space in front of you and just say to yourself, I can love this. I can love you. And just because I've been aware, in many cases, we're observing. So there's plenty of time and space for us to say this to ourselves. It's not as though we're a continuous mouthpiece. There's time and space for us to very easily just look and go, I can love this. I can love what you're doing. I can love what you're saying. I can love you. I mean, we can just play with the repetition in ourselves to say that as we're witnessing. And it really, because I have had the experience before of doing this, and that's why it's coming back. I've had this experience before. I married into a very large Italian family, very, very large. My husband's one of 7 and his mother's one of 7. That's a large family. So when we go for Christmas, it's 50 people easy. And that's just my husband's family. That's not even his mother's, all of those people. And I remember the loud talking and everything and being like, I'm an only child. I remember my head being like, and you would think, here I am 26 years later, that it would settle down. And it took me being able to love them right where they are, because the way they're speaking to each other, they're just so excited. It's not that anybody wants to squash anybody else's joy. They're just so excited that they just keep talking and keep talking and keep talking. And when I was allowed myself to see it that way and to be able to look at it and be able to just, there was awareness of how much love was in the room, even more so than I had even though I had mentally known it, it was completely different. And I was able to be in it and just sit, because I used to try to jump in and try to talk in between them and be like, hey, and then instead I was able to just observe it. And it felt so good because they had created this loving energy, and it was just a little bit different than how I was raised, but yet it's a big space of love, and being able to just be in it. I experienced last Christmas, I know, when I began to do it this way, that my sister-in-laws showed up very differently in supporting me in something I was moving through with my children. And they showed up completely differently, without opinions or judgments, and were able to just sit and be with me. And the over talking, did that exist? No. And so it was magical for me to have my sister-in-laws really be with me and support me in a completely new way. And that's how I did it. I'm aware now. This is how I did it.
Interesting.
Jingles. So Maria. So first of all, I met Maria at the Holistic Chamber. Well, okay. So I met Maria. I drove to San Antonio. I live in Liberty Hill, Texas. I always choose to remember to say that. I'm in Liberty Hill. Andrea's in Houston. And I drove because the closest Holistic Chamber was San Antonio for me. So yes. I drove to San Antonio, and then they had canceled the meeting. And Maria called me right as I opened my door to step out to go into the restaurant. And she so kindly was like, well, clearly you have time, Carrie. And I was like, yes. And she was like, okay, let's talk. And we talked for almost 2 hours, I believe.
Yep.
And I felt an instant connection, and we heard each other. It was a very cool experience for me. And I knew that that's how it was meant to be, and giving myself time and space. And it was great. It was amazing. So Maria, will you tell us a little bit of exactly what you do? And then I'm going to ask about your Christmas, but go ahead and tell me first what exactly you do. Share.
What do? I do, for the Holistic Chamber, I am their current president as of 2022. And when Carrie was walking in the door, I had just opened my email to see that, our meeting had been canceled, and I was out. And I was like, no! So I was like, ring, please answer. And so she answered. And so we just started chatting, and she started talking about, it's interesting how you start thinking about certain things, and you meet someone in that realm. And Carrie was that person. She was talking about she's the coach she listens for the words. And I found that very interesting because I've been to a few NLP seminars where they talk about the power of your words and how you say things, how to show up in the world. And to answer Carrie's question, what I am a certified fitness coach for women. I am a keynote speaker, author, and content creator. And I am the president for the San Antonio Holistic Chamber of Commerce. What do I do? Everything that goes around helping others. I wouldn't say leadership because I just had a call with this lady, Michelle, and she was a naval officer. And she does leadership, speaking, and all that stuff. And she said leadership is a spirit. You can't label yourself a leader. People choose who is the leader. So I don't think I'm a leader. I am just serving people and I help people, and that's what I do, whether it be in fitness, nutrition, or with my stories. I serve them a purpose to learn from me. And if they want to learn, that's great. And if they don't, like you said, I show up as my true authentic self. And if they like it, they like it. And if they don't, that's okay. I'm not everybody's cup of tea.
And what brought you to health, wellness, and fitness?
Andrea, we're going to be here for hours.
Everyone says that. Everyone says that.
Hours. So this is, and I always try to dial it back where I was when I was like, aha, fitness. And there was a few aha moments, but then I was like, oh, look, squirrel. And I just fell off the wagon. But
I've never done that.
No.
We laugh because we know.
We've lived that.
You know what I mean? It's one of those things where I'm a Latina, and Latinas, we eat everything and anything. You say food, we tie our hair, we dig in. Like, it was not like our family took pride in cooking, overcooking, I call it, because it was just insane amounts of food. I'll tell you this much. My entrepreneurial spirit came from my father, who used to have a taco truck for construction workers, because back in the early 2000s, there was a lot of development in the area. And he came up with a brilliant idea, innovative, to get into a taco truck business and go riding around those areas and sell food. So we would wake up early. I'm talking about 3 a.m., 4 a.m. And we would wake up to like the kitchen and the cooking. And I realized that there was something going on. Like, this was an everyday thing. I'm pretty sure that's what he does for a living. And the fitness part came to me whenever he passed away. And we were just kind of, we were very low income, right? So we could just eat whatever we could. And that's when I knew, like, my mom would tell me, you're so skinny, mija. You eat something. And I was like, this is just what I look like. Like, all my sisters, since I can remember, they would tell me, what does it feel like to be skinny? And I was like, I don't know, like feels good, I guess. And they were like, oh, I wish I was like her. And I would remember them telling me, I wish I was like you, skinny. And I never understood it. But I would always see my mom trying la dieta de la luna, the diet of the moon. And she would try all things, girl. And I was like, I don't know what she's doing, but she's trying something. And, TV hosts are like, you should try this and you should try that. And she would always try something. She never openly expressed, like, I feel very uncomfortable in my skin. I feel uncomfortable with the way I look. But I would always see all of my sisters, and my mom included, they will wear Spanx and they would layer their clothing. And I was like, it's so hot to do that. Like, And I never understood it because I never struggled with that weight until I had my children. And I was like, oh, okay. This is where they're talking about, right? So I fell into the same steps of, maybe running is going to help. But before that, I was already running on track. Like, I liked running. I liked the high of it. And I just remember, like, I was like, well, maybe running is going to work. And I ran on a treadmill, and then the father of my kids was eating, he was on his weight loss journey. And this is the first time I was introduced to food. And his mom told me, he was a really heavy guy. Like, he was one of those football players that was like stocky, and he was like 6'2", great, like big, huge guy. And he lost all this weight, and everybody was like, wow, you look great. And they were complimenting so much. I still didn't understand. But his mother told me chicken and broccoli is what helped him on his weight loss. So if you want to lose some weight, you might try that. And so I did, and I lost weight. And I was, I was breastfeeding at the time, so I was running on a treadmill. I looked good. But I also went down to an unhealthy 110. And I couldn't really get out of the gym. I couldn't get out to the gym because I had the twins and they were premature. Getting them out in the cold, it was just going to get them sick. So I was thinking, like, is there somebody that can, like, teach you how to exercise? So I would go on YouTube and I would find videos. And then I bought some Jane Fonda videos that I had from a thrift store. And those were amazing, girl. Like, I used to go in and it was a really good workout, and I couldn't get out of the house and I had the kids. But I always wonder, is there somebody that can come to my house? And, all in all, I say this to say this. It's always been a part of our society. But if there would have been more education, I feel I would have understood it. And I didn't. But I'm glad I didn't, because it helped me understand it the way I did and go through those steps of what a mother goes through to get healthy. And so now I provide education for everybody, and I provide it on all platforms. So if you miss it, maybe I'm not promoting enough and I should speak about it. And I am speaking about it even more on stages, and I'm writing a book and all this other stuff. So yeah.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Yes. So I hear that. So we speak a lot of our family DNA. So I hear that your family did something completely different, and they were yet to understand what was creating all of the, I'm going to say holding on. Because when we talk about weight, we laugh because Andrea and I will say, what are you waiting for? When people talk about their weight, because they're all like, I weigh too much. I'm like, what are you waiting for? And then we talk about the holding on of, and it is how we feed ourselves. And how we feed ourselves talks about how we nourish ourselves. And so I hear that you created new ways to be nurtured that were different than what your family had done. And it's funny that once the green vegetable comes into effect, then things start moving.
Yeah.
You added something completely different.
The common denominator, the greens.
Yes. And greens offer, and it's funny because greens offer nutrition, and green represents life. And in the chakra world, green represents a love and your heart. And so, and we know all vegetables are water-based, and water represents feeling. So where we haven't had them before and we've said no to them, it's where we've yet to be able to allow ourselves to feel, and where we've been yet to really love ourselves, because I believe often people will believe that it doesn't taste good.
Yeah.
That's so blah. Like, why do you do that?
Carrie,
go ahead.
I was going to add, there's a big misconception that I am just, I speak about it fluently and consistently, and I make sure people know this, because sometimes they're undereducated, but at the same time, their lifestyle is very different. I've had clients that do not eat any kind of vegetable except for canned corn or avocado, and I'm like, that's fine. Do you drink greens? There's a supplement for your greens, and it's called a supplement for a reason. It supplements what you're not intaking in your food. Greens. So if you don't like greens, just get a greens blend and have a dose of that every day. And they've yet to think that they still think that they have to consume both and plenty. And I'm like, no. There's fun ways to do this.
And there's a lot of different things going on, which I really enjoyed hearing. So one of the first things you said, Latino family, everybody overcooked. And it's a feeling of, we have more than enough, that we're abundant enough to do this. And your father's pattern of feeding everybody else. And I know that pattern because that's mine as well. My background is as a chef. And so what we talk about is what we do for others is what we're here to do for ourselves. And so learning how to feed me. And this is a movement that I have been in for the last 4 months and literally transforming my body. And I've let go of 46 pounds in 4 months.
Wow.
And it's been super easy. And you talk about, you spoke into how we feed ourselves. And we have one of the gifts that our predecessors, our ancestors had is there was available what there was available, and that was it. And we still have, and now the way that food, anything that cancel anything, foods that are prepared, fast foods, they all have levels of sweetness and texture and things that are built into them that make them craveable. And so there's that there's a physical aspect of things. Like there's the sweetness level, and Dr. Pepper is known for that sweetness level. And it's the ideal where it's just enough, yet to be too much. And so there's that, and that keeps drawing us back into it. And it's why we make choices that may be less than our highest choices. And my experience, if you had told me literally 8 months ago that I would be talking about nutritional yeast and tofu and making vegan mayonnaise and absolutely loving it, I would have laughed. And what it is, the experience of letting go of the weight, of the burdens that we have carried for generations is a walking into how much we love ourselves, that we can make these choices and changes, and that it's that, and a brand new, different way to feed ourselves that feels life sustaining.
That's true. I believe that holding on to weight is a very psychological thing that a lot of people, like, especially women, we carry this this psychological, I'm not letting go of. For me, this, and I'll tell you, and at first I thought I was kind of crazy. I was like, this is crazy. No, this is mumbo jumbo talk. Until I read a book of psychology, and I was like, whoa, this is crazy. This is patterns. And I recognized that my same pattern, I could see it in other women. And some of the women that I trained, they were refusing to let go of their customs of the way they ate, because it was believed that this is part of our culture. This is how we cook. This is what brings the family together. Like if I cook healthy, they're not going to want to come. You don't understand. This is the way we drink. We just have a thing where we're this, and we drink. And we drink these days. And I don't want to be left out. And I was like, well, but why? This is your family. You can make the rules. You can reinvent the wheel. And they're still going to love you, because they're going to understand that this is for our health. Maybe they might not see it immediately because it's a lifestyle. So I've had to understand that sometimes they don't want to let go of the food they eat because they feel like their family's going to alienate them. And most of the time they don't. But this is a belief that they live in a hypothetical world.
And for me, I had sexual trauma as a child. And so, for what I believed for so long was that the weight that I carried was guilt and shame. And it was yet to move. And when I actually came to my own understanding that it was fear that I was and hiding behind the fear to keep myself safe, because men don't like fat girls. That when I was able to collapse that belief in myself is when I chose to do something different. And it was the first time in 40 years I was willing to have a conversation about food.
Wow. Congratulations.
Powerful. Thank you.
Yes.
And so I get it.
And that's what in the Tejano, in my experience in the Tejano family, because I've had friends and I have clients that I know well, And in the Teano, it's food is family, and they bring it all together, and they have a history of making foods and assembly lines and rolling tamales, and we do it all together, and and there's ways to still have that and change the other things that are in the meal, or and make a little adjustments. There are ways to do it and still have all of that. It requires expanding what you've believed, and education, like you said, like you're here for education, because education is all of it. Because I actually have another friend that plays with us in consciousness, and she has reinvented that, and she says, I will put things in there and I do not tell them what that is. They don't even know, but they think they think I made it the exact same way. They're scrumptious it up. And she said, I don't really say anything. She said, sometimes I'll tell them later, but usually after we've had the meal 3 times. And then because then they can go ahead and say, oh, that's Cindy. And just go ahead and say that they love it. And then they'll be okay with it. But it's expanding what you've known, because we do get really in our ways, and this has worked for so long. So like people will say the whole thing, like, if it's not broken, why fix it? And so why create a change? It's worked for so long. And yet what you're seeing is, and yet it's not really working.
Yeah.
Because there is the separation in holding on to weight that does keep us at a distance from loving ourselves fully and allowing others in. Yeah. There is some of that is in there. They're just yet to know it. Andrea and I speak about subconscious mind, and in your subconscious, you don't recognize all these patterns. They're only aware of what they can see in front of them right now. And the moment that they're willing, that's what that's what you're saying is when they're willing to speak to me, the door begins to open to create something else. But I've had that experience with clients where one of the things I saw several times was sarcasm was part of their personality, and they believed it was part of who they were. And sarcasm translates that it tears the flesh. Yeah. And they're in gatherings, they would be the one that would have all the sarcasm. And I remember telling one of my clients, is it time to put this down? And she was like, I don't even know who I'll be without it. And I was like, yeah, okay.
Part of our identity.
Yes. And the reason I know that, it was part of mine. It was part of mine. And that's how I communicated with my children. Full sarcasm. Full. And when I put it down, no one said to me, none of my friends said, well, Carrie, you're not very sarcastic anymore. It's not any fun to be around you. It's just dissipated. It just went away. And what happened was the true me came forward. And no one said, oh my gosh, it's so different. No one said any of that. It just dissipated, and I could feel the connections with people on a much deeper level. And that's what people are yet to know, because when they will put it down, they'll experience love in a different way. And it can be bigger, and it can be much more amazing and feel much more warm and fuzzy than we've ever imagined. But like I said, it's the moment of change. We have to be willing.
Yep. I see your name, Conscious Carrie.
That's me.
So I'm going to be learning Maria. There's something here.
Yes, there's something there. There is definitely.
I'm abundant Andrea.
It's normal. She just hadn't changed hers. This morning it doesn't ask me every morning, and this morning it asked me. So I was like, okay, well, I'm gonna put in my Conscious Carrie this morning because the computer asked. And so I said, okay. So here we are. So Maria, because in this podcast we talk so much about your words, and I know that you have had some awareness around your words. And so we always ask everybody that's on the podcast, in their experience, if they had an experience in life and something they can remember where they changed their words. And when we talk about words, we're talking about, it doesn't have to be the words you said out loud. It's the words that we say to ourselves. And the moment that we make that change, how something in life shifted for us. And so do you have an experience of something that you can remember where you had this experience?
Plenty of times, girl.
Can
Plenty
you
of
speak into one?
So this one time, let's see. Actually, it does start like that. This one time, I was actually not this one time. I had been for consecutively for I want to say, there we go. I had been a holding on to my identity of who I was. I was a male entertainer. I was that party girl. I was, woo, Maria. And when I became an entrepreneur, I couldn't seem to break free from that identity, and I didn't listen to my self talk. That's key number one. I was not listening to my own self talk, and it wasn't until what was I listening to? I think it was a book. It was like, oh yes, uh, Steve Hart Eckert, Millionaire Mind. And he started saying things like, I have a millionaire mind, and the words that you say to yourself. And I remember clearly, I remember him saying stuff like that. But I remember the first time I wrote I am in my mirror, and I was going through a really dark time. I was, going through that identity crisis. I didn't have friends, but also it was after the pandemic, and I was feeling very lonely. And I remember my ex had broken my heart, so I was a heartbroken girl. And I remember being the victim. Why me? Why does everything happen to me? Poor me. And, I pull out the violin and start playing it. But I realized that I was like, how can I change the way I see myself? Because I want to feel confident again. I want to feel loved. I want to attract that person. And I wrote in my mirror, I am beautiful. And soon enough, I started feeling a lot better. And I wrote it in every single mirror. I am beautiful. And it started with one word, which was one sentence. I am beautiful. I just wanted to feel beautiful because I felt worthless after my ex cheated on me for like so many months. And just writing those words, it helped me feel better. But after I started listening to the T. Hart Ecker book, I was like, well, I have a millionaire mind. And so then I started adding to this mirror. Next thing you know, Carrie, this whole mirror was full of affirmations. And then I hired a coach because I started manifesting and attracting that coach. I have a millionaire mind. I surround myself with people with affluence. I am well known in my community. So I did this, right? And I started seeing how my life started changing, but I wasn't really conscious of it. And I did, attract this coach who actually told me, write your affirmations in your bathroom mirror. Every time you brush your teeth, every time you go in there, read them in the morning. And then he gave me all this other stuff to do. He was like, I read and I write and I journal and I manifest and I think about and I visualize. And I was like, okay, cool. So when I started doing that, like back in March of 2020 actually, no, 2021, I started doing this. And in 9 months, by like October, I realized that it had impacted. I was going through an extreme, I would call it like extreme self-development cleanse. It was one of those times where I was making like 5,000, 3,000 a month, nothing crazy. And I jumped up to like 10K by like 9 months. By October, I was like, whoa, this is crazy. This is cool, right? And I was like, what changed? Like, what changed in me that I am seeing this? And my coach was like, well, it's the power of your words. You're starting to talk more positivity into your life. You're speaking life into your own life. And I've had to rewire my brain since March of 2021 to now of how I spoke to myself, the things I was saying to myself in silence, the things I was thinking about myself in silence, the scenarios I was picturing happening in silence, and the things that we manifest without even thinking about it. Like we're just like, oh, it's going to go bad. It's going to go bad. And guess what? It goes bad. And the power of my words had a big, huge like impact on it. Like there's so many examples I can give you that I've changed the way I thought and said things that it actually happened. It wasn't like overnight things, but there was ways that I spoke to myself that made me accountable to do the things I said I was going to do, because that's what I was saying I was going to do. For example, I said I am going to be one of the authors in this book, and the book, it launched, but then the second book came around, and then I got to be an author in it. So I was like, okay, maybe I should be a little bit more precise with my words. I remember this one time I manifested something. And oh yeah, I was like, oh, I'm a money magnet. My coach gave me a bracelet. He's like, wear this. And I was like, I'm a money magnet. I'm a money magnet. I'm a money magnet. And I would find dollars everywhere. But then I was like, well, what kind of money do you want to find? Like, do you want to find this amount, that amount? And I remember hiring a coach, and I was like, you know what? I need to hire her. Like, I need to hire her because at the time I was not doing well, and I didn't know what to do with my online coaching business. And I said, I need to hire her. Like, I need a coach. I said, I need a coach. And when I said I need a coach, she appeared, and she was speaking, and she was talking, and she was, providing what I needed. At the time, I was like, you know what? I want to hire her. She's the one. I'm going to hire her. So I hired her. I invested my rent money 2 weeks before rent was due. I invested that money into this.
Wow.
And this was just like, I said, you know what, whatever it takes, I'm going to hire her because I need to get this business going, and I'm going to get it going one way or another. So I invested all of my rent money to March. And so I hired March, I paid her, and then I was like, I'm a money magnet. I want a check. Lord, I want a check. And I'm going to find a check. Well, my apartment that I had lived in priorly, it sent me a check, $25 short of what the amount for my rent was. And I just sat there and I smiled and I said, thank you, Jesus. Because I was so sure that it was going to come one way or another. They reimbursed me my deposit that I had put into the other apartment.
Mm-hmm.
But this is how things work. And I think that sometimes we get caught up in why does this happen to me? Because things don't happen to you, they happen through you.
And for you.
Yes. And I remember, they told me you have little to no credit, so you're going to have to pay an extra $300 on top of the actual rent. So it ended up being the amount for my current rent, but it was only $25 short. And so I was like, I receive a check and I'm like, cool, like, thanks, I'm a money magnet. And I receive that way.
I hear awesome. And when we will trust our yes, the universe will always deliver. It requires, sometimes leaps of faith are bigger and scarier, but when we give ourselves our yes is when we create the space for new and amazing things to come in. And I loved when you said you said affirmation was I am. That was the first word you used. You said, then you told a little more, then you said, I am beautiful. And Carrie and I play with the I am because scripture says, I am that which I say I am, whether it's thinking in the silence or actually coming out of our mouth, whether we're reading it, we're listening to it. And so I is God and am is action. And so when we use and begin decrees, because decrees are based in spiritual law rather than affirmations, which may have yet to touch the emotion where we are skipping over ourselves. We can say, I'm valuable, I'm valuable, I'm valuable, I'm valuable. But if you've yet to touch where you left your value, it may yet to really land. And so I am is amazing. And I just love how much faith you gave yourself with your yes and hiring a coach and what it has done for you and your business and in a very brief amount of time.
Yeah.
And you put specificity on deck too, which I was picking up dollars everywhere. How much do I require? I require because we're so scared to say what we really desire because as if we cannot have it. And we believe that it's going to come in this form, and it may show up somewhere completely different. I've had the experience of like, oh my God, my car, what am I going to do? I have this lump of, or a large amount coming to me, and now I've got to use it on my car. Well, thank God I have it.
Yeah.
No matter how it comes up and where it goes. And so when we will see our abundance is when we have the opportunity to have more.
I do believe in coming from a place of abundance.
Yes. And one of the Carrie, and speaking of abundance, because Carrie and I, our next class is recoding how your money is wired. And one of the activities that we did previously, and I imagine putting it on deck again because it's amazing, is we have this concept of what wealth looks like. And so for some people, it's cars and houses and money and clothing and jewelry and silver and crystal. Well, what I'm aware of is we are evidence of someone else's wealth. And others who are wealthier than us at this stage are evidence of what we too can have. And so we wrote down what we considered wealth to be, and found our own found it in our own homes. Where do I have this? I have this many cars, and I have this many houses, and I have this, and I have this, and we'd yet to be grateful and see what we actually have. And so when we're thankful for what we have, because it is enough, is when there's space for more.
I like that.
And I liked the way you kept mentioning in silence.
Yes.
Having these conversations in silence. I was imagining these things in silence. And I love that you brought that up, because that's what we do. We do all these things in silence, and we have to address and be aware of what we're saying to ourselves in silence, and change what we're saying in silence. And then we also require saying it out loud, because we're talking about speaking into a mirror, is speaking into ourselves. And we're saying it out loud so that we no longer keep it in silence. And I believe that there's both ways are powerful. And if we'll give ourselves both ways, we'll experience even more, because it may require we say it in silence first until we can say it out loud. But when we say things out loud, we're really believing them. And we're owning it out loud so that it can be heard. One of my biggest manifestations so far was the house that I live in now. And I told everyone that I was going to move to a supportive community with supportive teachers, with supportive coaches, with supportive neighbors, with supportive friends, where I could see land. And people kept going, where's that? I'm like, yet to know. And I just kept saying it because I was yet to know where it was, but I knew it was coming, and I was owning it. And I would say it every morning when I got up, and I continued to say it. And then I would say it out loud, because we had spoken to my children about moving. And so then people were hearing it, and people were asking us where we were moving. And I just kept yet to know. And I just kept saying it, though, that because I knew what I desired. And we often will know the feeling we desire to feel, because if we're speaking about money, we may have an experience where we believe we didn't have enough, or we believe that, the feeling of looking for your next meal, or the feeling for, we are aware of those feelings and no longer desiring to have them. But what does it feel like to be to the other side? Yeah. And we often believe we don't know because we haven't been there yet. And my experience is that may be true. And yet in our divine blueprint, when we were designed, we do know. We know, because we know grand wealth, but we'll be required to call on the remembering. And so like we use decrees, like I remember my value. I remember my worth. And you're calling on your divine blueprint to rise, to move all of life experiences out of the way, to get them. I always see it as like a bunch of stuff stuck on top of, I see my blueprint almost as a net. And I'm like, and it's underneath of there and it's holding all these experiences. And it's for me to allow it to rise and allow this net to allow everything to just filter through and flow out, to be transformed, so that it actually, I can see it drizzle through, come to the bottom, and regenerate. Just as we allow things to go into the earth and be recycled, allow it to be recycled and stand underneath of my blueprint and support my rising of my value. That's my vision. When I see, I'm a very visual person. And so I can create these images in my mind, and that's the image that I see when I speak about remembering. And that's one of the decrees we use and we call on the remembering, because we do know in divine creation, we know. We just may have had a family and lineage that has another belief, but it's still in us and it's still accessible when we will believe.
That's the first time I've heard you speak into your visualization of your divine blueprint. That was awesome. Thank you.
Yes, it's my vision.
Like,
I have it. So now that I've spoken it out loud, don't you imagine that helps?
Wow, amazing.
Yes. And that's why we and we say things in front of the mirror, so that we say it out loud until we can fully embody, and then we can speak it to others. Because we speak it to others once we fully embodied it. If I was unsure about support and I went and told people that, then it would start to sway and bring me off course. And so we begin with ourselves. We begin speaking to our silent selves. We speak into our mirror to speak to ourselves out loud. And then when we're ready, we'll share it with the world.
Yeah. I believe the power of words is very important, and it's not from what I've seen in my circles, that the people that are around me are noticing that their words are very important, right? The way that you talk to yourself. And I teach this to my clients, because when it comes to a weight loss, fat loss journey, whatever it is, muscle mass journey, you have to say it to yourself. And it all starts with you. Like, you can't put your value on someone else. You just can't do that. That's not how it works. You have to start with yourself. As I love me, I love myself enough to give myself the gift of health, to give myself the gift of waking up early and getting my goals, and gifting myself exercise, and it's not, oh, well, if I date, and this was something I see, that people are 90% on autopilot when they're saying stuff. And you're like, well, what did you say? What did I say? What did you say? Oh, I don't know. What did I say? And they don't know what they're saying, because they're just on autopilot. But some of their words may include things like, well, I'm chubby because that's just who I am. Or they say things like, well, maybe if I date a bodybuilder, I'm going to be super hot too.
See, and that's sarcasm. And that's how they...
Then they date someone that is in the field of bodybuilding, competition, health and wellness. And then they're like, oh my God, all he thinks about is exercise and gym. Oh my God, he's so annoying. Oh my God, it's so boring. And, now he wants to change me. And I sit there and I look at them puzzled, like, didn't you just say that this is what it was going to help you fix it? Well, yeah, but, he's trying to change me. He wants me to be like this other girls. And I'm thinking I try to educate them, but there's only a certain point where they will understand what I'm saying. If they don't understand it, I don't even try anymore, because I understand that they're not ready for it. They're not ready for the conversation of, it actually has to start with you. You have to be the one to go out there and do the change for your physical health. Dating a bodybuilder is not going to help it. You're actually not going to like that this person is dedicated and disciplined, because it's going to challenge you. And if it challenges you, you might like it. But if you're not someone that likes to be challenged, and push past their limits. You might not like this person and might resent them for trying to help you get better, And I think that it's like saying, I'll be happy when I have a shiny, pretty car. I'll be happy when I have a home. I will be happy when I have a house. And I'm like, if you can be happy right now when you're broke as hell, trust me, you'll be very happy when you have all that stuff. But even if that stuff leaves, you will still be happy because that's just who you are. Money doesn't change people, it just emphasizes who they are. So when it comes to health, same thing. It has to start with you. You have to love yourself enough to give yourself that gift so you can go out there and make it happen. If it doesn't happen through you, it won't. You can't get it from someone else. Is what I'm saying.
And what's Carrie and I know that, so the energy of money is similar to how we are with love. So love and money have the same pattern. Love stays, love leaves. There's abundance, there's plenty, and health and wealth have the same patterns. So what I have experienced is the more I have jumped in and said yes to my health, I've seen my business expand and my wealth expand. And one of the things we read, Jay Shetty talks about, our core values are actually discovered. Our true core values are discovered when we look at our discretionary spending. It's the truth. And my discretionary spend is all about me, my body, my food, feeding me, and my health right now.
Love it. You come first. You have to have your cup full before you go fill someone else's cup.
I fill my own cup first. Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
So we're on the same. We are definitely all on the same path. And
so, Maria, so I have on here your link. So what are you currently offering right now? Are you just offering, are you coming to people's homes? Are you doing it on Zoom? Are you doing it in person? Are you doing both? What are you doing?
Everything is online. It's customized online coaching to find what works for you. This is not a cookie cutter program. This is not the one size fits all. I specialize in tailoring programs for women so they can learn what works for them. I do. I educate them as much as I can so that they have the tools to figure out what really works for them and not have to go on social media platforms or on magazines and find a diet and say, well, this diet doesn't work for me. Find what works for you. Find a coach that will care enough to help you figure out what works for you, educate you, so you won't have to do this anymore, any longer with anybody else. There is so much money going to waste on programs that are not even, like things that are not even worth your money. I'm not saying, come from a place of scarcity, but I am saying be sure that you invest in yourself wisely. Some of these people out here that are trying to scam you for diets and stuff, some of them will get you in the hospital. And if you get someone that cares enough to help you and educate you and walk you through, I think I pride myself in actually helping women figure out what works for them, educating them, providing resources. And if I don't know, I will lead you to somebody else that would. And that's what I do. I do online customized coaching. And you also can find me on LinkedIn. I provide value regardless. And that's what we do.
Awesome. And so this is Maria's Calendly link if you choose to book a call with her so that you can learn more about what she does. And so we have that on the screen right here for you. And we want to thank you so much for joining us today. It's lots of fun and talking.
Thank you.
Yes. And then I do choose. So we did speak into our money class. So in January, Andrea and I host it's our biggest class so far. Everybody jumps in for our money class because we find the patterns. And the way that we do it is we do it through a lot of different play sheets because we believe in playing. Some people call them worksheets. We call them play sheets so that we can play with what is going on for you now. We do them on Zoom in a group setting because it's a group movement. And will you be required to share your financial statements? No. And yet we'll still find your patterns in your play sheet so that we can support you in transforming you. And we've had people in class, in the middle of the class, get raises, get grants. Things just start coming in for them as they start shifting in the middle of the class. And it begins on January 17th. It is a 5-week class, and it's on Tuesday evenings. This is our link, embodycoaches.com/money, to find out more about this call. It is an amazing experience, and I empower anyone who's listening to begin your year in this way as we discover where our money and our love have the exact same energy. And we play with some of the things that you were raised believing. Money doesn't grow on trees. You have to save every penny. So we'll find the actual beliefs of what your parents may have taught you, your grandparents, and see the true meaning of those words. And then we'll transform what is actually acting. So the deep patterns that are in your subconscious, if you were aware of them, you'd already transformed them. That's the reality. So we're bringing up what you're yet to know so that you can actually move it and have a permanent transformation.
Mm-hmm.
So
where we're keeping ourselves out of thriving abundance.
I'm going to hop in then.
Yes, it's an amazing call. We would love for you to jump in and join us. It is super good stuff. So thank you so much for joining us, and everybody have a happy holiday with your family, and remember to love yourself and your family right where you are.
Yes, and we are taking a brief pause through the rest of this year. Carrie and I will begin our video podcast again on January 4th with with Dr. Anita, and I choose for her to pronounce her last name for you when she shows up.
Awesome. Awesome.
Thank you so much, Maria. It was lovely to meet you, and you have a blessed holiday.
Same to you, girls.
Thank you.